WN Times. We have a true honest-to-God quarterback controversy here this week. We'll be talking about it all week. Want to remind everyone we'll be in this guy's homeland of Essex at Patrick's down on Eastern Avenue in Essex with Matt Skura as well as with Alex Lewis. That happens on Tuesday night. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry, and There Goes My Hero, all brought to you by our friends at Fremont Mortgage. We'll also be up at Buffalo Wild Wings at the festival in Bel Air on Wednesday night. We'll be swabbing there as well, watching the Terps and Virginia way back from when the Terps were in the ACC. This guy remembers that. He also has some Essex roots, although he makes his homeland now at Coons Florida Security Boulevard out on the west side of town. And the first guy that I know, literally in my life, who bought the Lamar Jackson jersey, who's not an anti-Joe guy. You're not down on Joe. You're pro-Lamar. And here we go, Dennis, right? Like, from the minute that happened and you and I got together, for 6 months, I heard all the national pundits. You were on the Lamar thing early on. You swore that by the time we got to Atlanta, we'd have a quarterback controversy for one reason or another, right? And that Lamar Jackson wasn't going to wither away this year, that they weren't going to burn a one and burn next year's two without playing him. Well, here we are, and I think the jury's still out on whether he can help us win right here, right now, but certainly for the future. You know, Joe Flacco will not be the quarterback of this football team next year. I'm pretty confident in saying that right now.
Yeah, you know, for all the pundits who said that once Lamar Jackson played quarterback for the Ravens, they wouldn't win another game this year. For all the pundits who said that, you know, we have a wide receiver playing quarterback, that's ridiculous. The guy is a quarterback. These are people who never watched the kid throw for 3,500 yards in college. He does have a cannon for an arm. Look, they try to prove a point in Sunday's game by having him throw the ball. They got away from the strength. And in the second half, they reminded themselves of who they are. This is who they are. This is their identity. They're going to be a run-heavy team, and that's for why not. The only chance they have of beating teams like the Chargers and the Chiefs, and even the Falcons, is by keeping these high-powered offenses on the bench. How do you do that? You run the ball. You get these 17-play drives that suck up 7 and 8 minutes off the clock. You keep the opposing team's offense off the field. You give your defense a rest. That way, when they come in, they can be effective. It's a recipe for success, not for disaster for this team going forward.
Well, we got many, many things to discuss here. First would be, all right, Joe Flacco's cleared. You're convinced he's 100%, because we're not convinced of that, right? So we don't know any of that, and we won't know any of this week. And this plays right into the paranoia that really sits at the base of John Harbaugh's the way he works, right? Like, he loves all facets of this quarterback controversy from the Atlanta perspective of, we're not going to tell you who's going to play or how they're going to play. So if Flacco's healthy, how do you proceed, Dennis Koulatsos?
Yeah, that's a very difficult thing for the coach to process and get through. Sounds to me by his press conference's words Sundays that they've already made up their mind. I think it's got to be Lamar Jackson from here on out. It looks like he's taken over the locker room. Michael Crabtree says, look, we're all in. We love his enthusiasm, his energy. He makes magic happen. And I think what the biggest thing for me is this team runs the ball a lot better when Lamar Jackson's in there than when Joe Flacco's in there, because the safeties or the linebackers, they have to keep an eye on Lamar. When he puts that ball in Gus Edwards' gut, they've got to make sure that Gus has it and that Lamar doesn't pull it out and goes around the end for 50, 60 yards, as he's prone to do.
Gus needs to figure that out, too, because they had, and that's going to happen, right? In this offense, I keep saying there are going to be interceptions. There are going to be bad reads. He's a rookie quarterback. They're trying to bait him into doing stuff. And I tried to talk to Harbaugh about this after the game, and I guess maybe my question didn't come out right, but there is a part of this after watching the game played a certain way all these years, right? With Flacco, traditional offense, 5-step, 7-step, all that they've been trying to build, to route trees and advanced offense and speed and having a burner, whether it's Smith or whether it's John Brown, whatever. That offense we've seen through 5 different coordinators, right? Through 5 different quarterback coaches in many, many ways. This is so different, and it really is. And it is. John Harbaugh doesn't know what's going to happen with the ball. And I don't know that coaches are really comfortable with that, right? Like, kid, you do whatever you want with it. You see what you see, and then you go have fun with the ball. That's not the way coaches coach. That's not the way quarterback coaches and offensive coordinators go through progressions and reads and the way offenses. There's something very, very adventurous about this. And when he threw that little Brett Favre dart, that I had never seen thrown in football back in the 70s and 80s until Brett Favre came along. That little linebacker's up on me, I'm going to dump the ball off real quick forward. Brady does a little bit of that. Peyton Manning was a staple of his offense, right? But we don't, we haven't seen Joe Flacco do a whole bunch of that. And the fact that there's this unpredictable part of it makes it fun and adventurous, but it does feel like a tightrope. It really does. It doesn't feel as something you can count on. You can count on something chaotic happening, and whether that's to us or against us, whether it's an interception, whether the ball goes up in the air, it's fun to watch to some degree, but I would think from a coaching perspective, it's very scary.
Look, his intangibles and his instincts, they're off the chart. He went from run heavy in the first game to pass happy in the first half of Sunday's game. And look, it'll come around for him. He'll start letting go as he gets more comfortable in the offense, and then you'll see the real magic of what I think he can be. He's not a running quarterback. I think people miss that. He is a dual threat quarterback, very much in the mold of a Deshaun Watson, maybe a Russell Wilson, a combination of both. He's very unique. He's not like Michael Vick. He's got a similar skill set, but I think he's a better passer than Michael Vick. We saw the pretty throws he threw in the Sunday's game against the pretty long ball down the sideline to Mark Andrews. Then he had another long pass called back. I mean, that's a quarterback. That's not a runner, right? A runner just doesn't do that, just doesn't pull up and for the perfect spiral down the sideline. We saw the nice slant to Crabtree. He can make every throw in the book, and I think as he gets more comfortable, as he starts being himself, as he starts reacting versus thinking, right? I thought he thought too much in the first half against the Raiders.
He's got a lot of thinking to do, right? I mean, especially where throwing the ball now, it's not that he's being judged on it because we're all going to sit here and talk about it. And, one of the good parts of Flacco was just sort of blocking all that out. I mean, I don't think Lamar Jackson's sitting around listening to pundits say, can he throw or can he throw? If you saw him throw the ball at Louisville, he can throw at that level. The question is reading defenses, doing traditional things. But then, most importantly, like the biggest benefit that he has in the offense, as I've seen it over 2 weeks, is extending the play. The gift that Ben Roethlisberger had, right? The gift that any running mobile quarterback, a guy that can move out of the pocket a little bit and can throw well on the run, which is a totally different skill set, right? Throwing well on the run in the speed of the game versus back in the pocket, I'm going to read three things and make my best read and throw the ball, which is the way all these guys have been trained for 25 years. I don't know that this kid's been trained that way, or certainly at Louisville they want him to do certain things, but there is a point where they want him to run the ball. His skills dictate that you want him to run the ball. But when you're in that traditional offense and the play does break down and the play gets extended because he has the ability almost every time. We did see a linebacker catch him once on Sunday, right, when he was running backwards. But most of the time, he's got a step or two and can beat most guys that aren't a cornerback or whatever that would be able to really catch him. And now there's that, all right, he made a fool of the defensive end or the linebacker, and he bought himself 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, maybe 3, maybe 1 or 2, right? He gets himself out of the pocket. What happens then? What happens then? Is he looking up and seeing receivers? Is he buying time to see receivers? Are guys cleaning up blocks and second blocks and third blocks? Where are the tight ends? Where are the running backs? Because there's no scheme at that point, right? At that point, it's a street game. It's what I played over in Colgate. It's pickup, And I think he can be very good at that. Obviously, but I think it can also be very dangerous in a turnover way when Crabtree thinks he's going to sit on the route or come back to the quarterback and does something else. Because we saw a really foolish pass early, right? Like, we're like, where the hell was he throwing? He threw it behind the receiver. Well, he thought the receiver was going to stop. And a lot of that is about communication. But to me, it's all about he's going to run, they're going to make play. I'll give you all of that. But what happens that moment the play gets extended, that's going to define who he is. It defines who Brett Favre was, for better or worse, right? And it defines Ben Roethlisberger in a Hall of Fame way. Ben Roethlisberger is a Hall of Fame, never seen anybody this side of Tarkington be able to do that. And when he gets good at that and never making a mistake and eating the ball, dirting the ball, running with the ball, getting the 5 yards he can get, or finding the wide open guy 30 yards downfield that somebody forgot about, right? Because they're too busy chasing him, that if he can find that guy and it's a touchdown every other week, I mean, it's an incredible skill set. Like I get it now, Dan. I get why you went and bought the number 8. I really do. I'm sold on the fun of this, but it really needs to be executed well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Nestor. But look, he's a different kind of a cat. He does give you that. Again, he's a dual-threat quarterback. He will extend the plays. We've seen him play cat-and-mouse games with defenders who are caught up. Do I leave my defender? Do I leave the receiver and go after Lamar, or do I sit back with him, watch Lamar take off for 30 yards? I mean, it's a great problem to have for the Ravens offense, but this gives them the best chance to win. The other funny thing, Nestor, is this: we tend to be insular. Every fan base does the same thing. We look at things from our perspective, but it's funny how the national audience looks at the Baltimore Ravens right now. I heard Boomer Esiason say that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens' electrifying offense dominate the Ravens, right? So we don't think our offense is electrifying. One of my guys said, boss, how much longer do I have to watch this Oklahoma offense? Well, you know what? As long as we're winning, how about that? Because that's what's exciting. But the national media all of a sudden thinks that the Baltimore Ravens, with Lamar Jackson under center, all of a sudden have an electrifying offense. So, be careful what you wish for, right? As long as you're winning. I mean, I don't know what fans in this town want. Right now, the narrative is, look, we beat 2 bad teams. Well, the Ravens can't pick their opponents, right? They can't pick their schedule. All they can do is take care of business with what they have in front of them. But this thing plays out real well. It plays to who they are, to their strengths. As you mentioned, I'm not anti-Joe Flacco, but the last 4 games before Joe got hurt, he wasn't good, Nestor. He wasn't going through progressions. He was panicking. He was getting rid of the ball way too quick because the offensive line is so porous. He needs confidence. He needs a stout offensive line in front of him. He needs a strong running game. Things that can happen with him under center at this point in the year. The best chance for this team to win, going down to Atlanta or up in Kansas City, is by having Lamar Jackson under center, stay true to who they are, run the ball, play action off of it, shorten the game, right? Shorten the game, keep that 40-minute, 20-minute spread, right? 40 minutes possession versus 20 minutes for the other side. Keep those quarterbacks on the bench. That gives them a chance. Look, the Seattle Seahawks have done the same thing this year, right? They focus on the running game, efficient passing by Russell Wilson, solid defense. That's the only way that they can keep up with teams like the Rams in their conference.
Dennis Koulatsos is our guest. He's selling cars at Kuntz Ford of Security Boulevard. He'll also be here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home and getting you ready for the weekend. I will be in Atlanta. Luke will be out on the backfields in Owings Mills here this week. And for Harbaugh, this really plays into the paranoia and into the game planning and all of that. But I would be shocked if we've seen the last of Joe Flacco. I think you win a Super Bowl with him. I think you're paying him $25 million. I think if you believed he still was the best option a couple of weeks ago, especially where you're going to need to pass the ball consistently and efficiently. But I don't know what happens to the running game. And I would see Flacco coming back into this and saying, look, I got 5 weeks left in purple for whatever it is here. When they call on me, I'm going to go in and do my thing. But more than that, number 8 is giving them a chance to get into a chance for Flacco to be a hero, a chance for Lamar Jackson to be a hero, a chance for Terrell Suggs to be a hero on Sunday down the line here. The Kansas City and San Diego games, they will tell the test as to whether you're a playoff team, right? I mean, if you can't go to Kansas City and San Diego and win in December, you're not going to Pittsburgh and New England and winning in January. I mean, it's as simple as that, but it is sitting there for them in a way that maybe we felt it slipping away when they went a month without winning.
Yeah, you know what? I think by playing Joe Flacco this year, I think they take a risk at reducing his market value. I just don't see it with Joe with this current offense for him having any type of success. I mean, the receivers, they've had trouble getting off of press coverage, and Marty hasn't done a great job in creating schemes to get these cats loose. So I think they should save face with Joe. I think they should shelve him for the year. I think this should be the Lamar show with RG3 backing him. I think that's their best chance going forward, whether they make the playoffs or not. I don't think they'll make the playoffs with Joe Flacco under center. I think they have a much greater chance of achieving that goal with Lamar. Look, they may finish 8-8 with Lamar Jackson, but I don't see them finishing any better than that with Joe Flacco, maybe even worse. So they've got to make some business decisions. And back to John Harbaugh, look, he's playing with house money. I made the comment weeks ago, if he has any designs of coming back as a Ravens head coach next year, he's got to hitch his wagon to Lamar Jackson, not Joe Flacco.
Okay, and so now you hitch to Lamar and it's not good enough, let's say, but it certainly has been good enough the last 2 weeks. I still have to weigh where the offense is really better, and it is fascinating how good this running game has gotten this quickly. And we're going to be down at Patterson, Essex on Tuesday talking about that with Alex Lewis and Matt Skura, but it is fascinating, right, that all of a sudden you can stick another guy in the backfield we've never heard of, the Gus Bus, and he's, 3/4 away from leading the team in rushing after rushing the ball for, 10 quarters of football. And it's all different with Lamar Jackson out there because it's not pretty, right? To your point, it's Oklahoma, it's rugby, it's Navy, it's whatever it is. I don't know that it beats Kansas City or San Diego. I know it presents challenges, but I also know an upright Joe Flacco who could hit Snead on the run or hit Crabtree or hit Smokey down the field in a better way right now, a better passer. I think that's a dual threat, and I think there's some combination of Joe Flacco 30 snaps and Lamar Jackson 20 snaps that makes it even crazier by the time you get to Kansas City if Flacco is out there and upright some of the time on Sunday and they win in Atlanta. I think this thing becomes peanut butter, really. I think it becomes quicksand for other defensive coordinators if you have to deal with both of them.
Well, I don't think the Ravens can win a shootout in a game with Kansas City or San Diego. They just don't have the weapons. Nestor. Maybe the Rams or the Saints could win a shootout against those two teams, but the Ravens and no other team in the league, in all fairness, can win in a shootout. They just don't have all the personnel that surrounds these great dynamic quarterbacks to make plays. That's why their best chance of winning is to keep playing, Lamar ball or whatever you choose to call it, right? That's their best chance. That's their DNA. Joe Flacco is not going to win a shootout with anybody these days. He just doesn't have the playmakers. I've always said, what would happen if you put Joe Flacco, in Kansas City's offense or the Rams' offense? Now, at that point, the guy can make a great living, right? He can light up the scoreboard. We just don't have the personnel. I mean, I don't see John Brown playing for the Ravens next year. Crabtree may or may not. Snead probably will. But the point is, they just don't have a wide receiver one still on this team like these other teams have. They have multiple wide receiver ones. They have tight ends. They have running backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield. We just don't match up well with these teams, but not many teams do. So what do? You slow it down. You take the hair out of the ball. And then when your defense is fresh, they could do a great job and get some 3-and-outs like they did in Sunday's games against the Raiders. Dennis
Koulatsos is our guest. Tell everybody what's going on out of Coons Ford this week, because you got sort of the post-Thanksgiving turkey. I'm still drinking my leftover eggnog. I'm eating my wife made pumpkin pie. I mean, I'll be eating pumpkin pie until I leave for Atlanta this week. It's delicious, but I know you got some things working over there as well.
Yeah, we have a lot. Big sales still carrying over from Black Friday. Always a reason to come to Coons Baltimore Ford. We're still looking for trades. We give more money for trades than anybody in the region. 125% of Kelly Blue Book. That's what helps us sell a lot of new cars, trucks, and SUVs. Is the fact that we do give people more money than they can get anyplace else. We match and exceed appraisals. So our sales department is very busy. Service department is very busy. Parts, body shop, you name it. We're a one-stop shop, and right now people are taking advantage of year-end savings as we're clearing the decks for the 2018 models as we have 2019s coming in already.
Still got some 18s, though, right?
Still got some 18, and that's where the deals are. A lot of, up to $10,000 off on most of my 2018 models.
Moving them out. Here's Dennis Koulatsos. He'll be here on Thursday from 3 until 5 doing the SSV on WNST. Sort of last thing for you, big picture on all of this. Where do you expect to be 5 weeks from now? I think I asked you 2-3 weeks ago if you thought the team was a playoff team. I think we were all off of that at 4-5. Now it's 6-5. Feeling a little better, certainly healthier. I mean, Tony Jefferson and Alex Lewis and Ronnie Stanley and Mosley. I mean, the guys are banged up, but that's across the league. But by and large, they get Flacco back. They will at least have a healthy backup quarterback in some people's minds. But over the next 5 weeks, where do you think I should make plans to go to Bimini first week of January, or are you really believing there's going to be a road trip to Houston or a bus trip up to Pittsburgh or whatever it would be?
Look, I think this team has a floor of 8-8 and a ceiling of 10-6. Big game against the Falcons, huge game, pivotal game, swing game. Falcons are 4-7, not a good team. I'm curious to see what Lamar Jackson can do on turf. He's been very fast on grass. Can you imagine how much faster he'll be even on turf? I don't know that the Falcons have seen anything like him. Nobody has. I expect the Ravens to win the Falcons. I don't know who's favored in that game. It wouldn't be surprising me if the Ravens were favored, but big pivotal game. They beat Atlanta. They moved to 7-5, and at that point, you got momentum, right? And as Coach Billick has said, momentum is a force multiplier. Anything can happen after that. They go to Kansas City, punch them in the mouth. Look, that would be the one that may turn the football world upside down. But they've got to handle their business at Atlanta, and they'll go as that game goes. If they lose to the Falcons, they'll drop to 6-6. Probably lose to the Chiefs 6-7, and then you can see the wheels start to come off the cart, and you're building for next year. But big game against the Falcons. They've got to win this one.
Dennis, my early line, and again, this is just on my phone, -2.5 Ravens on this.
Really?
Yes. And the over-under's off the board. Some games are up, some games aren't up because of results over the weekends or quarterbacks or stuff like that. And where we are, like, Pittsburgh is a 3.5-point favorite against the Chargers, right? So one of those teams will pick up a loss on Sunday night. Mm-hmm. And by the way, Pittsburgh doesn't look so good lately. New England doesn't look so good lately. We'll see how good Kansas City looks, right? Like, we're going to get that up and close in 2 weeks here. We'll see San Diego up and close in 4 weeks and see where they are. This thing's sitting there, man, right? Like, every time the Titans play, every time the Colts play, I mean, I guess we're writing the Dolphins off now. Maybe we're writing the Bengals off now, and whatever the Browns laid on the Bengals might be the end of Marvin in Cincinnati. I mean, that was just a really, really bad look. I mean, the Bengals have just literally imploded, right?
Yeah, they have, and rumors are that Hugh Jackson may replace Marvin at Cincinnati. That'd be a great thing for us. Just talking about a division rival, they certainly got to stay backwards where they've been for a long time. But you're right. This is this. I can't believe they're favorites, but it just goes to show you how much respect they're getting from the odds makers from Vegas. They punch the Falcons in the mouth, and I think the Falcons are set up to be punched in the mouth. But in other games with Flacco, I would always say the Ravens will go as far as the offense will take him. I'm worried more about the defense against the Falcons than I'm worried about the offense. I think the offense will find ways to put points up against the Falcons. To me, unlike in games past with Joe Flacco quarterback, the biggest question is, can the defense slow down Matt Ryan and Julio Jones and us to contain them, to give the Ravens offense a chance to win? And I think that's the matchup. That's what I'll be keying on.
Man, it's otherworldly when you look up and see that Julio Jones has 1,300 yards, and we're trying to get somebody to 600 in this offense, And when you see with the A.J. Green, the elite guys, when they're playing and playing well, that we've never really had that around here. We've never seen a whole lot of that through any era with any quarterback and any offense. And I guess it really does speak to how special Julio Jones is. And this has been a real problem for the Ravens, where there's one guy who's just better than any other of your guys, and they find a way to get him the ball when they need to, on third down, on a breakdown, on a bad play. And to your point, I'm fully expecting Matt Ryan to figure out a way to put 26 to 31 points up on the board at home against the Ravens, and that means that the Ravens are going to need to not just move the ball back and forth and kick a little bit here and punt a little bit there and get 3 points, but to punch the ball in. They're going to need to score 3, 4, 5 touchdowns to win the game this week.
Well, hopefully special teams will show up like they showed up in the big game against the Raiders. Cyrus Jones, local Gilman product, Alabama alumni grad, great punt return for a touchdown. Hopefully they can break one with a kickoff, maybe block something. But you did mention Julio Jones. Hopefully Eric DeCosta can get us a wide receiver one like Julio Jones, something that Ozzie has failed to do in his illustrious career. And I don't know if the Ravens and brass were in conversations with the Raiders about Amari Cooper, but boy, he's been a difference maker for the Cowboys. I know the Ravens don't have a number 2 draft pick next year, but in retrospect, I would have given the Raiders a number 1 for Amari Cooper to put it in our offense, because that would have expanded the field so much more for a guy like Lamar Jackson.
Dennis Koulatsos is selling cars, and when he's not, he's talking sports. You'll find him on Thursday from 3 until 5 here doing the SSV on WNST as well as on Sunday morning, getting you ready for the game. Luke and I will be a part of that. And in the meantime, you'll be out of Coons Florida Security Boulevard. You know, at some point, the Orioles are going to hire a manager, and at some point, you and I, when it's all done, and I want you to go read Astro Ball, okay? I mean, I know you like sports enough. You like deep thinkers. You like a strategy. You like a flow chart. You like a success story. I know deep down, and you know when I'm talking about Patrick's in Essex and doing football things in Essex, you know that you had some baseball in you back in the Mace Avenue days, right? I mean, you would admit that, right? So and I'm making this recommendation to anybody out there. I mean, there are a lot of guys like you who loved baseball and me, and the one challenge I keep making to John Angelos, and we'll get into this. We have plenty of time to get it because we talk so much football, you and me, but what's going on with the baseball team right now should be illuminated. It should matter. It should be top of mind, and it should be part of the conversation around here. And at some point, you and I will get after it. But this is a fascinating time for the baseball team, and Astro Ball is a fascinating read. And I think if anyone committed time to do that, you'd have some understanding of what these guys are trying to do. Now, what the organization's trying to do, I have no idea, man.
Now I have Moneyball. I have that book, and I've read that book a couple of times, so I would imagine Astro Ball is an offset of Astro Ball.
Well, if the Orioles had hired Billy Beane in 2006, Moneyball would have been a hell of a read for you. So if you did that and he didn't even take over the team, you can have an appreciation for what these guys have done with analytics and who they are and, how long of a curve this is. They're not promising competitive baseball in 3 or 4 years here. This is a literal – these guys wanted to build a train wreck. They wanted an expansion team. Well, they got one. Now, whether the kids allow them to function the way they're going to need to function, part of that, honestly, is getting guys like you and me to come back to the ballpark. And that's really –
What is your hunch in terms of a manager? Any names that come to mind, Nestor?
The manager's first name will be Joe. How about that? So that's how sure I am at this point. Joe Espada is the candidate everyone is talking about, and I think there's a reason for that. So
good.
Houston connections, Yankee connections, Brian Cashman connections. He was a special assistant in the front office. He's a guy that worked the front office down. He's Puerto Rican. He's bilingual. The whole deal. So there.
Okay. You think he'll be effective, a good manager for us?
I think I've had 5 very effective people tell me that he is the guy that they would hire, and it'll be interesting to see whether this is the place he wants to take his first job. You know what I mean? Because I think he's a guy that the Cubs might hire, right, once Joe Madden's not there anymore and they're not paying managers $7 million a year. Because, Den, the big thing with baseball right now is managers not making a lot of money. Like, that's what they're doing. They're doing that in hockey. They haven't done it in the NFL yet, right? Like, I haven't heard Bisciotti say, I want a cheap head coach next time around. But there's an argument to be made in baseball that that's one way they save money and they manage by probability. Again, Sig Mejdal, Mejdal, the book Astro Ball is mainly based around him. He was a blackjack dealer in Lake Tahoe and was always shocked by how many people would not follow the book because their gut told them you don't hit a 16 on a 7. Even though the book says always hit a 16 on a 7, right?
Gotcha.
So, and then when you don't hit the 16 on a 7, you're now down a bet, and then you make another stupid bet, and that's how you wind up losing money playing blackjack. Is by not always making the best statistical, analytical decision. And then Astro Ball goes into the heart of why they brought Verlander in and why they gave a whole bunch of money to Carlos Beltran as not by the book decisions, right? But when they're in the game itself, when they're doing probability and statistics and moving players around and shifting and pitching a certain way and relieving a certain way, all of that is based on computer algorithms that essentially this guy Sig Mejdal, who's a NASA scientist for 20 years and who went with a little notebook to the winter meetings in 2003 and said, I'm a rocket scientist who wants to help your baseball operations. And he was laughed at by every team in the league. And the Cardinals hired him as a 39 or 40 40-year-old. I mean, he's, you know what I mean? He was like, he had a whole career as a NASA rocket scientist. And in 2003, went in as a lowly baseball fanboy scout with nerd stats. He now has 2 rings in St. Louis and Houston. Mike Elias has 2 rings in St. Louis and Houston. And this is their great midlife crisis experiment, right? Dan, this would be like you and me buying a minor league hockey team, you selling off the dealership, me selling off the radio station, saying, hey, let's go try to do something else with our lives right now, completely different, and apply everything we've learned in the first thing we did, and that's who these guys are. So This is Elias is a failed pitcher from Yale, who blew his arm out in college and went to see Tom House and fell into part analytics because he was a Yale guy and part baseball because he was a baseball player. So that's who these cats are. You're going to get to know them, and maybe you'll come back to baseball. I don't know, Den. Maybe I won't come back. Maybe none of us will come back, right? Maybe these kids who don't want to be interviewed, don't want to be out in front of it, and don't want to have any accountability for it, maybe we'll never come back. But it's a good book. How about that? It's a good book, and it's a great sports story. You know, if nothing else. And these guys are here. The whole book's about them, quite frankly.
Astro Ball sounds like a must-read. I'm going to get my copy today.
It'll be time well spent. It was for me over the weekend. While you were selling cars, I was getting smart.
And you sold me a book. Hopefully that'll get me smart to even sell more cars. I'm always looking to learn and get better.
You don't want my copy. I gave it to Luke, and it's got orange lines all through it. I'm a highlighter, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love analytics. I love stuff like that because, like Copy Coach said years ago, Brian Billick, you rather rely on your gut or data. So give me all the data that I can get my eyes on and try to apply it properly. I'm all about that.
That's where we are. He is Dennis Koulatsos. He's got the data out of Coons Ford Security Boulevard. And if you're on our text service, you will find out the Orioles manager. The second that we know, you'll know. His name will be Joe Espada, I think. Pretty sure. I kind of hope. I'm looking for the new blood here. Hispanic manager. Wouldn't that be something? Nasty at WNST.net. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming around the world. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.